Notre prochain invité vient précisément des États-Unis. C'est un ancien dirigeant de Turner, spécialiste de la data. Pourquoi les États-Unis? On ne va pas se voiler la face. Ils ont souvent un coup d'avance et c'est particulièrement vrai sur le ciblage data en télé. Ici, c'est émergent. Là-bas, c'est déjà une réalité au quotidien. C'est ce que l'on va comprendre avec cet éclairage signé Howard Shimmel. Welcome on stage. Présentation en anglais, donc il y a possibilité pour vous de mettre des écouteurs si vous le souhaitez.
Bon matin, bonjour. My French is not very good. I believe Lauren introduced me as someone who's very handsome and very funny. Is that right? So welcome. I have about 35 years in the US media market. I've had the opportunity to work for companies like Viacom, Nielsen, and most recently Turner. I left Turner at the end of May and I formed my own strategic consulting company. TF1 asked me to come here today to discuss the US experience with advanced advertising on TV, and specifically targeted linear. I cannot stress to you the importance of launching these products in the US market and also in the French market. It's important that if you remember one thing from what I say today, $1 spent in linear TV using audience targeting drives a higher ROI for advertiser than $1 spent in against traditional age-sex demographic. Please remember that. It's important to advertisers, it's important to media companies, as they think about driving yield. One thing that's really important is to remember that the US has used age-sex demographics since the 1960s. I'm not sure how many historians there are in the room, but that's when Lyndon Johnson was president of the United States. The US market hadn't changed the way it transacted media since 1965. We needed to change. We needed to find new ways to drive ROI for our advertisers. When I think about where we are in the adoption, we've gone through the stage of creating great integrated data sets that we're able to use to drive these new approaches to advertising. We've successfully launched the products in market through beta, testing with our clients, and then going fully launching. And now we're at the point of full market adoption. My estimate is that coming out of this year's US upfront TV market, roughly 10% of the $70 billion that's spent will be spent against audiences, not traditional age-sex. To give you a further sense of why this is so important, why advanced TV is so crucial, there was a Credit Suisse analyst report that was issued last summer. Their view is that by TV becoming more targeted and TV becoming more measurable, it will give the opportunity to capture roughly $100 billion a year of marketing spend that is currently spent on marketing channels that drive sales directly, but potentially may not drive brand impact for an advertiser. Just so we're clear about definitions for the rest of my remarks, optimized linear is when an advertiser is buying the entire spot, it's running across the nation, but we're using data to basically identify the spots that do the best job of reaching our audience target. Not age, sex, our audience target. I believe you call that GRP data in the French market. Addressable is when TV will have the ability to do what digital can do, where we're targeting individual households, and different households could get different ads depending upon the data and the content. Here's a little bit more detail about the Credit Suisse report. If you think about the US market now, there's a tremendous amount of dollars that are spent on below-the-line marketing dollars. These are dollars that advertisers use. They don't necessarily drive brand value, but they know they do a great job of driving short-term brand sales. Look at the amount of money, over $100 billion that's spent in telemarketing and direct mail. The Credit Suisse view is that over time, as TV becomes more addressable, more targeted, with better measurement, the TV and digital direct to call to action advertising is going to be a $200 billion a year opportunity where companies like AT&T, Time Warner, NBC, Comcast, and the like will be competing with the Facebooks and Google and others for that new pool of dollars. But the key thing is that data and measurement will drive the adoption of these products. So as we think about the US market, there were three key enablers to the success we've had with enabling audience buying and specifically targeted linear. The first is the data. We had great data to use to drive these products. The second is we introduced a new function into our organization, hiring data scientists who previously had not lived traditionally in a media company. And the last is we rethought the way we thought about managing inventory. We realized that we had to give advertisers the ability to be more specific in cherry-picking the right spots. So let's first talk about the data. What you need to drive targeted linear is you need data that corrects directly to the age-sex currency that you're using for traditional age-sex buys, but then overlays advertiser targets onto that information. In the US, the first product we had was a product that linked MRI to the Nielsen TV panel. So that's very similar to the product that you have in market that connects TGI to Mediametry. The next two products that we launched, one connected shopper loyalty card data directly to the Nielsen panel. The other connected credit card data to the Nielsen panel. The beauty of these two last data sets is they not only provide great data to be used in audience targeting, but they also provide the ability to do direct ROI measurement. You're following the same people, what they watch and what they buy. You could see someone's behavior, how much they bought the product, what happened when they were advertised to, and then the incremental lift beyond that. So the first thing you needed was these great data sets, and we've been enriched in the United States with data from companies like Nielsen, Comscore, Rentrak, and others. The next is we needed to introduce data scientists into our organization. We needed to refine and enhance the way we thought about estimating audiences to be used in selling and to be used in audience schedule optimization. Here's an example of the value of that data, and let me take you through this a little slowly. The dots are showing the audience estimates that were created for one program, Big Bang Theory, on TBS. It airs 260 times a quarter, 3 times a day, so each dot reflects the audience estimate for that show by day against an audience target, in this case, serial buyers. What you could see, and the value of targeted linear, is there's a huge amount of discrimination. Look at the difference between the orange spots, the orange dots, which are the spots that do very well against the audience target, versus the blue that do less effectively. And you can see that there's a 4-to-1 difference between the higher rated spot and the lowest rated spot. There are about 20 telecasts that deliver over 30% higher than the median. The ability to have this sort of data combined with great technology to do spot selection on behalf of the media company, on behalf of your schedule, is what drives the advantage that targeted linear provides to the market. When we think about the overall schedule outcome and the value that targeted linear provides, a couple of things that are really important. The first is that there are instances where a targeted linear schedule will actually deliver a lower CPM than the age-sex historical schedules. It's saying that you're going to find some instances where lower-rated, lower-priced inventory actually does really well for that audience target. So your overall deal CPM might be lower. It's not saying that to optimize, you need to buy a lot more high-priced inventory, which may be important for the advertiser, is especially important for the procurement person in the organization. It drives higher targeting composition, You're seeing you are doing a better job of finding spots that have a little less waste. But the most important point is the one on the bottom. Optimized linear, targeted linear schedules deliver more than double the ROI, pure measure of sales impact, than those same dollars spent on age sex. Twice the ROI. If you think about the health of the ecosystem, we really want to take advantage of this opportunity. So when you think about optimized targeted linear, a couple of things that are important. It's beneficial to the broadcasters and the publishers. It gives us targeting capabilities that have been very important to the digital world, so we're starting to match capabilities with them. It gives advertisers greater ROI, and also it allows consumers to see more relevant advertising. You know, consumers do not hate commercials. Consumers hate irrelevant commercials. They hate too many of the same commercials. This helps some of that relevancy. So I mentioned before that my estimate is that there'll be about $66 to $7 billion spent on audience coming out of this year's upfront. We are finally now, after a couple of years of having these products in market and in development, roughly half the market is either regularly using these capabilities in the United States or experimenting. We're hoping that market momentum, advertiser success is going to what drives the other 50% to adopt. But we're in a good place. We don't hear any instances where advertisers are not happy with the outcome of moving to this. We just need to make this a regular part of what we do every day to transact advertising. There are a couple of things that we have to be specific to overcome just to make this as easy to do as age-sex demographics, as age-sex schedules. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that data, audience data, the Mediametry TGI data, sits in every agency system where the Mediametry age-sex demographics sit. There should be no additional workload required by an advertiser or their agency to execute against audience differently than executing off of age sex. We need to work on the roles and responsibilities of what an advertiser's agency accomplishes and is responsible for versus what a media company is responsible for. I describe it as success as a team sport. We need the agencies to be planning holistically across all media, within media, and at a network level against audiences. But we then need to allow the media companies with their advanced analytics, estimates, and spot selection to pick specific spots. The combination of great agency planning combined with great data tech and spot selection on the advertiser, on the media company side, is going to be the thing that drives success. And lastly, we just need to establish something like the Mediametry TGI as an industry currency. In the US, there's an organization called the Media Ratings Council who accredits rating services. We need to make sure that all of these services are accredited by the MRC. We want advertisers to feel as comfortable transacting off of audience as they do based on age sex. A couple of things we're thinking about to the future. One is to make these products truly cross-platform, to be able to take the same target definition in TV and in digital and video on demand. The other is sort of the nirvana future of imagine a world where you not only know that a specific spot has a lot of the right audience, but you also know that that spot has an incredibly high responsiveness, that we could actually be optimizing against outcomes and delivering on outcomes and be selling guarantees based on outcomes. You know, in the US, we are anxiously awaiting the ability to do addressable, truly set-top box level addressable through television. We can do it now in our local cable breaks in among some providers. Our vision is that addressable in national advertising is something we want to make happen. But my view is that when that happens, it's not going to eliminate the need for targeted linear, that advertisers are probably going to want to use them together, because there may be some instances where the target means use some targeted linear, but then use addressable to reinforce among some specific audiences that may be hard to reach through targeted linear. So just in summary, we have the data, we have the technology, and we know it works. I'm hoping to see the French market adopt and be at the same point that the US market has been in a short while. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Stay on stage with us, car on va aller plus loin avec vous. Philippe Baucher de TF1 Pub qu'on va accueillir, merci de l'applaudir. Plusieurs questions qui lui mordent les lèvres. C'est à toi, Philippe.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate. So my first question, the big question, the big question from the French perspective. How did the US market manage to change, to impulse a change from demographic to data targeting on TV? I mean, don't you have, just like us, all your history based on demographic, years and years of negotiation of cost per point, all based on old traditional demographic? How did you succeed to change?
So I think the biggest message is you had the desire of the media companies to improve the way we were executing TV. And the media companies were very aggressive about creating these ad products. Turner, NBC, Universal, Viacom, others. And at the same time, you had advertisers realizing that there was a better way to do things. So first you had interest on both sides. The second thing that I think was really important is you had a bunch of products in early stage development that were executed live in market, where the results were shared widely across the market. So in its first year, Turner launched its first ad product, and the results were shared broadly, and everybody saw that the value in that data. The other thing that I think is really important is the first set of ad products were done to sort of mitigate the risk that the agency or the advertiser would take on. They were built in a way that didn't really put in jeopardy historical demo CPM trends. So I think that's also an important thing of start in a place where there's less risk.
And it's a long journey?
I think everybody would have hoped that we'd be beyond 50% now, that we'd be beyond a couple of $1 billion. I mean, obviously, the US market is big, but...
I mean, $7 billion is already a pretty big amount of money for a French market.
Yeah. Well, as a percentage.
What is the new role of media agencies in this new TV and data ecosystem with thousands of data clusters?
Yeah, it's a great question. As I said in my remarks, I believe that for an advertiser to ultimately drive all of the opportunity with targeted linear, the agency needs to do really, really great planning. They need to really study their audience target across all of the TF1 inventory and figure out what the right mix of that inventory is to optimize against the audience. But then they need to hand it over to you to be able to use your intelligence to pick the best spots. That additional step is going to drive material yield. I think also, in the future, as we think about a world where we're really managing TV against outcomes, I think there's an important role for the agency to be thinking about a brand like a cereal brand could go to market and target heavy users of their brand, heavy users of the category users. And I think the role of the agency to be thinking about which of those target for a given spend drives a highest ROI, thinking about price, thinking about what inventory is out there, how much supply there is, and thinking about the responsiveness. So I actually think there's a bigger, I think media planning is going to take on a much bigger role in the future than it plays today.
And you talk about digital. Does optimized linear also something to do with the convergence between TV and digital? I mean, TV, video, digital, all based on data segmentations?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a place where the US market has not as advanced, and it'll be interesting to hear the comments from Freewheel, but the dream is being able to knit together TV, digital, video on demand, social, all of the sales capabilities that a media company has against an audience, and also to knit them together so that you are managing reach and frequency of the campaign in an effective way. So I think the answer is yes. It's a place where we're waiting on the right data sets to come into the US market to enable it.
And while preparing this keynote, you explained to us that most of this optimized linear audience segment in the US on linear TV are currently traded in CPM. I mean, CPM on linear TV, for real?
Yeah, look, I honestly think that we need to be able to manage two different ways to transact and measure. I think we need to measure it based on CPM and doing that in a way where we are very transparent about the adjustment from HSEC CPM history to optimized targeted linear CPMs, and accept the fact that if a target is small, that difference may be pretty extreme. Look, someone who's selling a high-end BMW, their target CPM may be $1,000, and we need to be, and that's okay, and that's just reflecting sort of the target size and how hard they are to reach. But at the same time, if it's more comfortable for the market to do it based on cost per point for the audience target compared to cost per point for the age-sex demographic, I think that's okay too, and I think it's just based on the situation.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that CPM on TV is not a nasty word anymore, at least in the US.
Yep.
Last question. Will you say to a French advertiser that to invest on linear TV, all this campaign only based on traditional demographics is leaving some ROI on the table?
Yeah, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with, there's a very famous US researcher by the name of David Poltrack who runs research at CBS. He's been there 45 years, I think. Dave's done a lot of amazing US research that leads the industry, and Dave was at a conference a couple of weeks ago where he said anybody who is transacting still based on age sex is criminal. I don't know that we want to go quite that far, but you are leaving ROI on the table. You can get the data sets together. It could be the syndicated data that you have with TGI and Mediametry. It could be linking your own customer data to the Mediametry panel. But if you're not doing it, you're missing a giant opportunity to make TV work harder for you.
Thank you very much for this refreshing view from the US.
Well,
Enjoy your stay in
me.
Paris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.